We're reviewing 5.1 to 5.4. This is a review for your quiz, but it's also a review for your test. All right, so we're working on our collaborative desk, okay, to show our work. We're going to just work through these ratios, proportions, ratio tables, and these questions, again, I've taken from your quiz and your test. So we're really narrowing down what you need to know for your quiz and test. Okay, so in the first example, we are writing and interpreting, okay, so that's a big part of it, ratios. All right, so you make baked ziti using the ingredients in the table. So there will be some ingredients in the table that are irrelevant. We just need to focus on the ones that it's asking us for. Write the ratio of hamburger meat to noodles. Now, the ratio can be written any one of the three ways. I will ask that you reduce the ratio if possible. Okay, reduce it. Now remember, if it reduces down to, a denominator of 1, you have to keep that. Because if you make it a whole number, it's no longer a ratio. All right, so go ahead and write your ratio and then find the value of that ratio. What is the value of the ratio and what does that mean? Okay, so that's the interpretation part. Let's go ahead and work through it. You don't necessarily need to write the table down. Don't copy the table. That's going to take too long. But answer numbers 1 and 2. Work together to answer those two questions. It's going to be 6 to 8. Did you guys get 6 to 8?
Yes.
Now, that's not reduced, so you would say 3 to 4. Now, remember, you can use a colon. You could use the word 2. Or you could use a fraction to do the ratio. Now, the value of the ratio is dividing the first number by the second number. And in this case, 3 divided by 4 would either give me a value, you could just say of 3/4, or you could say the decimal value 0.75. All right, so there's my value of the ratio, but what does that mean? Can anybody tell me what that means? Aiden?
It means that there's 3/4 hamburger meat for 1 noodles.
Yes, very good. There is 3/4 the amount, okay, of hamburger meat compared to noodles. All right, so it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. That means if I'm talking and trying to spell, that's not going to work out. If I'm using 1 cup of noodles, that means I'm using 3/4 of a cup of hamburger meat because it's 3/4 the amount compared to noodles. And now that I know the value of that ratio, I could double my recipe and I would know how much I needed to use compared to noodles. Joel?
Could you say 3/4 of a hamburger for every noodle?
Well, it needs to, you got to remember though, it's cups. So if you just said for every noodle, it kind of sounds like it's 1 noodle, not, so you would just say every cup of noodles, okay? All right, so that's writing and interpreting. Now we have to complete a ratio table. If you remember back to your homework assignment, this middle row was not there. But we do know that it's understood that you must find the value of the ratio in order to use that to complete your ratio table. And if I'm going from the top number down to the bottom number, is that multiplication or division? It's division. And then if I'm going from the the bottom number to the top number, it's multiplication. All right, so I do want you to copy this ratio table. Make it look nice and cool. Use your artistic abilities. All right, go ahead and copy this ratio table on your desk and fill it in, okay? So you're going to have to find the value first and then fill in the rest of it, okay? Work together. That's why you're in groups. Make sure you're working together. Okay, so I know in order to find the value, I have to use the block that I know the top and bottom value, and I know I must divide them. 3/2 divided by 1/2, which means I flip the second fraction and multiply. Did you guys get 6/2, which is 3? Okay, so 3 is my value. Now, again, when I'm dividing 3 divided by 3, what would be my bottom block on the second row? Second column, it's 1. All right, now, on this third block, I might need to write that out. 3/2 times 3/1, which is 9/2. You could leave it 9/2. You could say 4.5, or you could say 4 1/2. And then the last one, 3 times 2 is 6. Did anybody get the whole table correct? All right, awesome. Great job on the tables. That is on your quiz, and it's on your test. Okay, now I want you to find the unit rate. Remember, we're still looking for that value of the ratio, but now it's called rate. Does anybody remember the difference between a ratio and a rate? Anybody raise your hand? Hadley?
With rate, you need to get it down to a unit per one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. With a unit rate, it needs to be for every one. So it can't just be a rate, but a rate compared to a ratio. What is different about a rate, Colin?
Instead of they're both cups, they're different measurements.
Yes, that's exactly right. Like in the first example, everything was a cup, right? Cups of noodles, cups of hamburger meat. But in this section, now it's grams of fat and tablespoons of peanut butter. It's a completely different unit. That's okay. I can still do a comparison. It's just a rate. Okay? So now I want you to tell me how many grams of fat are there for every tablespoon of peanut butter. Make sure once you find that unit rate that you label it. Please label it. To find the unit rate, you must divide the first amount. Now, it doesn't mean the first amount from the directions. It means the first amount in the actual question. So grams of fat comes first, 3/4, divided by the tablespoons of peanut butter. Now I have to flip and multiply 3/4 times 3/2, and I get 9/8. Can anybody give me the answer? What would you say is the unit rate, and then how would you label it, Joel?
1 1/8 gram of fat per tablespoon of butter.
Perfect. Okay. Per tablespoon of peanut butter. All right. Now, again, if he said buttered instead of peanut butter, I don't care about that. He's got the general point of it. Okay. So just get it close. Now, if you flipped them and said of peanut butter versus grams of fat, then that would be wrong. Okay. So the order does matter. All right. Now I want you to find the unit rate. Here for this scenario, 60 centimeters for every 2.5 years. Go ahead and find your unit rate here. And again, it's rate because they're different units, centimeters versus years. I put this into a ratio, guys, 60/2.5. Then I divided them to get 24 centimeters per year. What do you think would grow 24 centimeters per year?
Bamboo? A tree.
Yeah, like bamboo or a tree.
Bamboo's like in the day.
Like a plant. Okay, you wouldn't say a baby, right? Because a baby's growing like several inches per year, especially when they're small. Okay, so something realistic. Now, obviously, that's not on your quiz. I was just basically throwing that out there. Okay, hopefully you remember that rate that you just wrote. Okay, because now you're going to take that rate. You could probably come up with it again pretty quick. Now you're going to take that rate and you're going to compare them. I'm not going to give you much else right now. I just want you to kind of look at those second values. My feeling is that some of you will kind of figure it out on your own. So I want to just give you a minute to look at it. If you think back to that drilling example where they're drilling the liquid iron out of the core from our notes, all right, there was just kind of like a twist at the end, and we see that here. So let's take a minute to work on that. 30 centimeters for every 15 months. So when I find the unit rate here, I found that it was 2 centimeters per month, but this is not a true comparison. This is not a true comparison. I can't say 24 doesn't equal 2 because I'm not actually comparing them in the same unit. So in this part of the lesson, I told you it does not matter which one you convert. If it's 24 centimeters per year, what could I do to figure out how many per month? If I know it's per year, I could divide by 12 to figure out per month. Or what I did was, if it's 2 centimeters per month on the second one, what could I do to figure out how much per year on the second one? I could multiply it by 12. So the second one, actually, if I'm comparing years to years, do you see what I did there? I multiplied, this is 2 centimeters per month, but I have to multiply it by 12 to figure out how much per year. The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
I was right.
Okay? Once you compare them both, okay, again, all right, if I grew, like, let's say when I was a little kid, if I grew 2 inches in a year, but my friend grew 4 inches, or I'm sorry, if I grew 2 inches in a month, but my friend grew 4 inches in a year, I can't say, that that's the same comparison. You have to be comparing years to years, months to months. All right, so just make sure you catch that if one of those comes up. Okay, so now let's tell whether or not ratios form a proportion. Okay, ratios that form a proportion. Let's go ahead and do both of these. Okay, put them into fractions and set them equal to each other. Yeah, definitely want to do that cross multiplication. 12 over 22 equals 18 over 33. When you cross multiplied, what did you get? 396 equals 396. So it's yes. Now on the second one, these are decimals. 3.2 over 8 equals 1.2 over 3. Okay, so 8 times 1.2, what did you guys get? 9.6. Yep, 9.6. And 3.2 times 3? 9.6 again, and it's yes. Okay, so it actually was yes on both. But if they're not the same number, the answer would just be no. All right, so now I want you to tell, okay, so I've given you a complete ratio table. So earlier in the review, you actually had to fill this in. Now I'm giving you one that's complete, but I want you to tell me, are these quantities proportional? If they are, they should all reduce to the same value. They should all reduce to the same value for the ratio. So go ahead and test that, please. Actions, did you find them? The first one's 1/4, right? Okay, you don't even have to do anything. What is 3 over 12 reduced to? 1/4. What is 6 over 24 reduced to? 1/4. What about 8 over 32? 1/4. So the answer is yes, because they all reduce to 1/4. If even one of them had been different, they would not be proportional. Okay? All right, so now we're going to solve the proportion. You don't necessarily have to explain your method, although you do need to know what method you're using, so it's not like guesswork. Okay, so if I'm looking at the first one, there's probably 2 methods that would be equally acceptable. If I'm looking at the second one, I'm probably definitely going to lean towards one method versus the other. Okay, so go ahead and solve both of these. Remember, you need to be working together. Did anybody do mental math on the first one? Okay. Mental math would say, what is my missing link in the middle? What's number? Multiply by what? Multiply by what, guys? 3. 3 times 3 is 9. So 8 times 3 is 24. If you did cross products, you should have gotten the same answer. Okay. Now, on the second one, I definitely would do cross products because of the distributive property. 8 times s plus 1 equals 4 times 4. Okay, you see what I did there? I did my cross products, but I can't add s plus 1 together. They're not like terms. So I must distribute the 8. Don't forget to fully distribute the 8. All right, let's go ahead and solve for S. I'll give you another minute. 8S plus 8. 8 times S is 8S. 8 times 1 is 8. Okay, equals 16. What do I do next? What do I do next? Subtract 8 from both sides. 8S equals 8 now. Divide by 8. S equals 1. All right. What I want you to see when I plug it back in, what's 1 plus 1? 2. Is it true that 2 over 4 would reduce to the same fraction as 4 over 8? They're both 1/2. Okay, so it would work out if I plugged it back in. All right, modeling real life. Okay, you can type 250 characters in 60 seconds. Your friend can type 375 characters in 90 seconds. Do these rates form a proportion? You do need to make sure that you're comparing the same. Is this seconds to what? Seconds to seconds. So if one of them said like 1.5 minutes, you would need to take care of that before you could actually do a comparison. That's what we were just talking about earlier. But they're both seconds, so I don't have to worry about it. Put them into ratios. I guess it would be rates. Find your unit rate for both. So you can see, one, if it's the same unit rate, yes, they form a proportion, but you can also see who is faster. Okay? So, yes, for a proportion, you would set them equal to each other. Let's see, Maddie, what did you write? Okay, so the first thing she's doing is testing to see if they form a proportion. When you do your cross products, what do you get? It's going to be a big number.
22,500.
Okay, on both sides. So my answer is yes. Okay. All right, now I need to check their unit rates. That's what I was just talking about. I need to check their unit rates to see if one is faster than the other one. Okay, so it's going to be 250 over 60. And 375 over 90. Go ahead and find their unit rates and answer the question. Is one faster than the other one? Okay, so it's going to be 4 1/6, or it was like 4.16 repeating or something. Okay. What? Characters per minute? All right, so we'll just kind of abbreviate it. Characters per minute. Compared to what? Same thing. So it's a tie. Okay? Now, if they're proportional, it will be a tie every time. If they're not proportional, one will definitely be faster than the other one. All right? So this is on your quiz in some format, okay? To make that comparison and to see if they form a proportion. Okay, let's see here. I need you to set up a proportion here and solve. It says swamp gas consists primarily of methane, a chemical compound consisting of a 1:4 ratio, here we go, of carbon to hydrogen atoms. That tells you which number stands for carbon and which one is hydrogen atoms. It needs to match up on the other side. If a sample of methane contains 1,564 hydrogen atoms, how many carbon atoms are present? I know it gets a little wordy, but here's what you need to remember. You must compare the same unit on both sides of your proportion. Go ahead and try to set up your proportion and solve it. The first ratio is 1:4. You just need to know what the 1 stands for. It stands for the carbon. Okay, 4 stands for hydrogen. So where does 1564 get plugged in? The top or the bottom? The bottom. 1564. The top is my x. So 4x equals 1564. I divide both sides by 4, and x equals 391.
Yes.
Carbon atoms. Okay, do you guys want to know how I did that division in my head? How I divided it in my head? Can anybody do that in your head?
I did it.
You did it in your head? Okay, so here's how you do it. 4 goes into 15 how many times? 3. So that's your first digit with how many left over? 3. So now 4 goes into 36 how many times? 9. So 9 is your second digit with none left over. And then 4 goes into 1 how many times? 1. So it's 391. Okay? So that's a way that you can start doing these more mental math and be less dependent on your calculators. All right, x equals 391 carbon atoms. The last thing I want to cover is your review section for your test. I need to narrow down how many chapters are in our rear view mirror. 4 chapters behind us. There are 5 review questions on your test coming up. You have 1 review question to where you're going to solve the equation. It's going to look something like this. -3 times x plus 6 equals 36. Okay, I need you to solve that equation, please. Okay, we're kind of wrapping it up. What's -3 times x? Don't forget to fully distribute. Did you guys remember to do that? What's -3 times +6? -18 equals 36. Add 18 to both sides. -3x equals 54. Divide both sides by -3. Okay, and x equals -18. Did you guys get -18?
Yes.
Okay. All right, here's your next problem. -2x minus 6 is greater than or equal to 12. Okay, I need you to solve this inequality and graph your solution. All right, so add 6 to both sides first. -2x is greater than or equal to 18. Then when I divide both sides, oh, you did forget one thing though, Caleb. Check it again. Divide both sides by -2. Now, you did right. He switched the inequality. Did y'all switch it?
Yes.
Did you switch it? But then you switch it. Don't switch it back. It's not greater than now. It's less than or equal to. What's 18 divided by -2? -9. Okay? So now, -9, -10, -8, close dot, arrow going left. You see where you went wrong? Why'd you you switched it, but then you switched it back? But why did you? Yeah, but why did you switch it to start? I'll look at. I'll show you in just a sec. Compound. Here we go. All right, we've got 10 is less than or equal to 2x, which is less than 18. Okay, I need you to solve this inequality and graph the solution. I don't say what kind of statement it is. You do have to be able to recognize what kind of statement it is. Go ahead and solve and graph it. What did I do to all 3 sides? What do I need to do?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2 to get x by itself. So now 5 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 9. What are my boundary values? What are my boundary values, guys? 5 and 9. Open dot or closed on 5? Closed. And what about 9? Open. which way do my solutions go?
In the middle.
They go together in the middle. This is an and statement. No arrows. This means that all the numbers in between, like a 7, would make this true. Okay? All right. So we do have 2 more questions that I'll continue to cover, but we do need to go ahead and release. All right. You guys have a great weekend. Okay, 2 more problems. The next one, we need to simplify the expression 3 times 3x plus 5 minus 2x plus 6 plus 2x. Okay, so it's kind of long. All right, the first thing we need to do here is distributive. So 3 times 3x is 9x plus 15. Now I have this minus here, which means I need to change, because there's more than one term in here, I need to change my operation. This means plus negative 2x minus 6. So I need to make sure I do that. Plus negative 2x minus 6, and then plus 2x. All right, now I want you to look at this for a second, and especially because there's so many terms here, do you see any opposites? If you caught that your negative 2x and your positive 2x cancel, then you don't even have to do anything. And now you just bring down 9x, and 15 minus 6 is a positive 9. Remember, with simplifying the expression, I can't solve anything. That's just my final answer. All right, the last thing we need to cover would be your factoring. If I said to factor, specifically to factor, let's say negative 6 out of the expression negative 36x plus 42. Okay, to factor negative 6, that means I pull out the number that I'm told to pull out. And how do you figure out what's left inside the parentheses? You would divide the original divided by the number that was factored. Negative 36 divided by negative 6 is positive 6x, and 42 divided by negative 6 is negative 7. And I know this is completely factored because there's no other common factors inside the parentheses. Okay? If you understand that, you should be ready for your test over 5.1 to 5.4.